As we move closer to becoming a more trauma-informed society, it's important for us to recognize that trauma and trauma symptoms seep into every aspect of our lives, including a relationship. I do a lot of couples work, and a lot of times in session, that's what we're working towards, is becoming a trauma-informed partnership. Using SAMHSA's 4 R's, we can talk a little bit about what that might look like in your relationship. The first R is realizing the widespread impact of trauma in society, meaning that more than likely your partner has at some point in their lives experienced some type of trauma. Recognizing the signs and symptoms of trauma, and being able to recognize and realize when your partner might be triggered and what's going on there. And then responding by fully integrating new knowledge about trauma in your communication and your interactions with each other. And finally, resisting retraumatizing. So trying to stop that cycle that you and your partner might find yourselves caught in. Well, SAMHSA's 4 R's begin with the first R, realization, which basically means realizing, first of all, how widespread trauma is and the impact that traumatization has on an individual. What's interesting is in the 1990s, Kaiser Permanente and the CDC did a very large study looking at childhood experiences and how they have lasting negative impacts through the spans of our lives. What they found was 10 specific childhood experiences that are directly correlated with adverse outcomes in adulthood. The study found that 61% of Americans have at least one ACE, 17% have 4 or more. And the correlation is the more ACEs that an individual has, the more negative experiences they will struggle with in their adulthood. These 10 childhood experiences can have lasting impacts in our lifetime. Physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, physical and emotional neglect, having a parent or caregiver who struggled with mental illness, witnessing your mother being treated violently, witnessing substance abuse, having parents get divorced, and having an incarcerated relative are all considered adverse childhood experiences that can impact us for the rest of our lives. On our exploration of trauma-informed relationships, we talked about realization and we looked at some of the adverse childhood experiences that may be present in your life. The second R is recognition, and this is being able to recognize when you or your partner have been triggered during a conflict. One way that you can deal with this is by doing what I call a U-turn. And a U-turn is whenever you basically call a timeout in the conflict, go into your separate corners, and then go internal. Do an internal exploration of what has been triggered inside of you and what does this remind you of in the past. The important caveat of calling a timeout is that you and your partner need to come back together and have an open, honest conversation about the trigger and how you can work towards mending it together in the future. The third R is responsiveness. And this is creating a system with your partner in which you both know how to respond to one another whenever the other one is triggered. Whether that be a timeout and then coming back together to talk about it when you both feel more balanced, or using I statements to take responsibility for your own emotions and your own triggers while trying to discover a way to work it out with your partner. Some dialogue that's often used between partners sounds something like this. So let's say that your partner says, I was really triggered whenever the tone of your voice changed. It reminded me when I was little and my dad used to isolate me and send me to my room. You might respond with something like, I hear you saying that when my tone changed, that really frightened you and reminded you of your past with your father. Is there anything else you would like me to hear? And you would continue that conversation until your partner feels that they have been completely heard and that you are responsive and attuned to what they're sharing with you. The last R of SAMHSA's 4 R's is to resist retraumatization. And this means literally what it says: resist re-traumatizing both yourself and your partner. So this would look like taking responsibility for your own emotions and your own triggers and trying to decrease defensiveness. To do so, again, you might need to call a time out with the understanding and the trust between partners that you will return to the conversation and solve this together as a team. Taking a we stance over an I stance is what's going to really help build that relationship and that genuine bond and trust between partners, where you know that we can face this issue together as a team instead of one or the other feeling isolated like they're on their own.